Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Here, I'll be going over my Season 0 Marvel Rivals tier list. Now, this tier list might be a tad controversial some places, so I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts and everything, and I'll try and elaborate as much as I can on why I think everyone is where I put them. Now, I waited a little bit to make this tier list because I wanted to get a good feel of how the meta has progressed throughout the season. I've seen some heroes rise pretty drastically and fall just the same throughout. I'll put timestamps in the description for each hero, so if there's a specific one that you want to see, or if you just want to skip to the end, you'll be able to see it there. And last thing, I just want to give a shout out to this tier list creator right here. With all that settled, let's get to it. Now, before we get to the actual tier list, I want to get a few things settled beforehand. Number one is the way I structured this tier list. Now, a lot of tier lists would have a lot of top-heavy structure, with the worst characters generally being around C and D tier. I wanted to make it a bit harder on myself, so I decided to make this list kind of like a normal distribution, so that I had to really justify why some characters make or miss a tier. So the final tier list will end up having 3 characters, both in S and F tier, 5 in A and 4 in D, and 9 in B and C. That way it adds up to the full 33. Number 2, just like in the title of this video, this list will be specifically made for console players. For reference, I'm about mid-GM 3 at the time of making this video, and it's about a rank below top 500 at this current moment. So that will be the point of reference I'll be speaking from. Some characters might be better on PC that just don't work on console very well. A great example is if you've ever played Overwatch, you'll know that Genji has typically been at least mediocre, if not great on PC, but on console, he's generally been the worst character in the game. Number 3 is just because a character is lower than you'd think does not mean that they're unplayable. The great thing about Rivals is that nearly every character is broken in some way, shape, or form. And I've seen great players on every single hero in my lobbies, with one exception we'll talk about later. Everyone can be good, they just take the right player and the right knowledge to succeed. Generally, I'll be judging these heroes by their kit and their current place in the meta, and I won't really be talking about team-ups maybe that'll come up in a future video, just because I don't really feel like it would affect where I'd place anyone, minus 1 or 2 that I'll talk about. With all that yapping out of the way, let's get to the actual tier list. First up, we have Adam Warlock. Now, Adam is an interesting place to start off with, because he's the first of a few heroes in this game that seem like they'd be broken at first, but in practice it kind of turns out iffy. His ultimate can res everyone on the team, and all he's really got to do is just walk up to their dead bodies after popping it. Plus, he's got that self-res and some great saving potential with his soul bond and burst healing. Now, with all that said, why do I think he's a little weak? His ultimate has a pretty long cast time, and the low health you get when you get rezzed makes it pretty easy to spawn kill off of. On top of that, he has fairly limited bulk healing, and it's on cooldown half the time. He just gets outclassed by other strategists when it comes to healing, and although he has some nice damage, I feel like there's other util that can come in his place as well. He definitely still has a good place on the roster and can be pretty successful in some team comps, so I have him placed right into C tier. Next up, Black Panther. Now, Panther has a lot of mobility and huge damage potential, getting his dash reset every time he hits someone marked by one of his cooldowns. His damage ramp on low health also comes in great, transforming some of his combos into very quick kills, while also keeping him incredibly elusive. He's the first of my designation of dive DPS, and one of the strongest with that kind of kit. He can struggle a tad when it comes to putting up as consistent damage as some other characters, and can sometimes struggle with really good backlines, but he still constantly reaps value while keeping himself alive. Overall, I'd say his kit solidly lands him in the B tier. Now, I did say at the beginning of the video that I've seen at least someone who was good at every character in the game around GM high diamond level so far. Widow, unfortunately, is the one exception. The most value you're going to get out of her kit is landing pop shots with her boosted jump, but really that's about it. Her abilities offer no real escapability or survivability. Her sniper can't one-shot without a damage boost, and it just limits her heavily incredibly. Her ult really isn't that good either. Its slowdown is alright, but there's just nothing special about her that can really justify her pick. She doesn't do anything well, isn't fun to play, desperately needs some kind of change, and until then, she's gonna have to stay in the bottom of F tier where she belongs. Now, Hulk is a hero that's grown on me a bit lately. As I've been climbing up the rank ladder, I actually considered Hulk to be even worse than Widow, surprisingly. Every time I saw him in a game, it was just free kill, nothing but feeding. And that is still unfortunately true to an extent, but at least I've seen some Hulks where I can see the potential. And I really strongly feel that he will be a great character as more people play him, and will probably end up as the best or second best dive tank. But unfortunately, right now, I will have to stick to my original premise of only going off of what I've experienced and not what I speculate, and what I've experienced is a whole lot of feeding. Because of this, the Hulk is going to be in D tier for now. Captain America. Probably the trickiest hero for me to place. The thing about Cap is he doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but he also just doesn't fucking die. He really doesn't need to get kills. I mean, causing disruption as a tank to open up opportunities for your DPS is a great path to go along. But the problem is his disruption is kind of mediocre as well. It's just everything he does well, he doesn't really do that well, but he's also just not really bad. He's really the definition of just mediocre. Which unfortunately in this game is subpar, let's be real. So he's earned his place right at the lower end of C tier. Cloak and Dagger. Fun fact, the very first character I played when I first started Rivals. And hell, I'm glad I started with someone fun at least, and good as well. Her kit offers a ton of burst healing with her wall and bubble, and great survivability, with an ability to turn untargetable with all your teammates around you. Plus, the blind and damage boost that gives tanks Overwatch PTSD from Discord Orb, while they also get to live out like Stevie Wonder. Her ult is amazing, as unless the other team has something like a Punisher or a Wanda ult, they have zero hope of killing you through it. She's someone who's fairly high skill to master, especially with that untargetable cooldown management, but she has such a high ceiling on support, and she has definitely been performing so far this season. She has absolutely earned her place right up in A tier. Doctor Strange, another character with a really cool kit. His portals can help create some crazy plays and saves, even if 90% of the time the crazy play, quote unquote, is just used to try and spot and kill off the map. His ult is great if you could pull it off right, especially when you release Dark Energy to do 200 damage right away and just absolutely melt squishies. His damage potential is a tad behind other top tier tanks, which is why I don't think he's the go-to option for tank, but his utility makes him a great option, especially when attacking points, so he has definitely earned his place right at the top of B tier. And what a coincidence, a tank that I think outclasses Strange sitting right here. Groot just has so much versatility. He can do an insane amount of damage with his walls while also being able to separate enemies from their team, and a great CC ult that just absolutely slams anyone stuck in him. His general consistency on all maps is generally what puts him above Strange for me, especially with how powerful his walls can be on a poorly positioned hero, and that lands him in A tier firmly for me. Now, when I set this up, none of these tiers had really any specific designation. I kind of just decided, these heroes are a little more consistent than others, so we can put them a tier above. S tier, however, marks a different kind of consistency, and that's the designated consistently banned tier. And Hawkeye gets to be our first guest here, of course. His arrows being able to one-shot gives him what Widow wishes she had, while also being able to fight close quarters, and on top of this, his ult's kind of crazy, just being able to spam shots at a target sitting still. There's a reason he's consistently banned nearly every game. He's just an absolute menace to squishies and tanks alike, and he has definitely earned his place in S tier. Now, just when you thought nothing could be worse than Hawkeye, Hela shows up. Now, if Hawkeye is unbanned, he might shred your team, but at least you have a chance to fight back with some kind of dive or your own team comp mix-up. If Hela's unbanned, it's literally just who has the better Hela. She just does insane damage, can headshot easily, has a stun that centers your target, escape ability which is immune while in the bird, an ult that acts like a get out of jail free card, can two-shot squishies in it. Like, she just does everything. It's just a point and click adventure when you're playing Hela, and she's just an insanely broken character in a game with a ton of broken characters. It's just zeroed out in my mind that she belongs to the S tier. Now, Iron Fist is another fun one. This is a character I thought would be incredible when I first started playing. I mean, he just seemed unkillable. But the more I started climbing, the more I started to realize he began to fall off compared to other dive TPS. I mean, every other one either has multiple dashes or has abilities that help supplement their kind of lack of escape tools, while Iron Fist just doesn't really have that toolkit. I mean, don't get me wrong, the parry is nice, especially since it blocks behind you even if it doesn't look like it does. But the damage fall off if supports are just helping each other or just get stunned out of existence every time with no help to escape, really. I just don't see Iron Fist at all anymore. And honestly, that's just because there's heroes that do his job but better. Sadly, he's got to go below Hulk and D tier for me. Iron Man is another interesting one. His biggest problem is his lack of real playmaking potential. A lot of Iron Man's game is spent behind cover while flying, pumping in shots to build up ult charge, and just beaming anyone that gets close. And while that beam can shred if it's used right, he also really suffers from falling off against a lot of DPS and unable to kill a lot by himself. He really only adds a bit of value in a large team fight, and although his ultimate's good, it's easily countered by Magneto or Strange, who you'll see a lot. And overall, I don't think it makes up for the rest of his kit. He does have decent survivability, though, and can help with that extra damage, so I'm going to put him right at the bottom of C tier. Oh, look, it's just a little guy. He's so cute. He's definitely not fucking Shark Hitler, right? Jeff is probably responsible for about 90% of player PTSD at this point, and for good reason. That Tam ult 4K'd nearly every single time when I was in gold and below. But once you start climbing, the Jeff players started disappearing. His healing leaves a lot to be desired, being highly overtime like Rocket, not providing a whole lot of burst value, which is really impactful in this state of the game. His bubbles do make up for that, but he still ends up getting outclassed by strategists like Cloak or Luna for healing, who don't have to really heavily rely on that cooldown to get that burst healing out. On top of this, he really doesn't have any general util to help with the damage aspect of being a strategist, besides, a decent chuck damage for this primary. His ult also becomes fairly easy to dodge the more you experience it, and he's still fairly vulnerable to the enemy team while trying to, die while he's in it. I do think he makes up ground with his survivability, since he is still a pain in the ass to hit while he's swimming, and the strategists he gets outclassed by are still very high on the list anyway, so I have him at the top of C. Loki has some really cool utility. The pylons come in for huge saves like Cloak's ability, since all damage gets turned into healing inside them, and his teleporting clones make him a pain to kill sometimes. But his healing is pretty awful, and once his pylons are gone, he's really a sitting duck waiting to die. His ultimate is also pretty nice to copy a second Lunal or Mantis ult, whatever you need, or maybe a clutch CC from a tank. But honestly, the cool aspects of his kit just don't justify picking him over nearly any strategist. If the meta ends up becoming something like 3 supports, he may become a mainstay overnight. But for now, I'm going to have to put him at the top of D. On the polar opposite of the spectrum, we have Luna. And I don't think anyone is surprised to hear that she belongs in S tier. She's the best support in the game by a mile. Top tier healing, especially with her clap, an ability that heals without having to even look at your target, being able to freeze, having faster movement speed, a higher jump for maneuverability. That's not even getting started on her ult, which pray you've got a Hawkeye or Magneto ult, because you sure as hell ain't killing anything in that music otherwise. She just does it all, and that's why she's really the only support that gets constantly banned, landing her easily in that S tier. I don't think I've seen more one-tricks on any character besides Magik so far. The amount of people that are awful once she gets banned is insane, but it's understandable by how strong she is. Her overhealth gained on each hit, Her ability to get in quick and start portaling around for survivability, not to mention her fully charged long-range attack does half a squishy's health nearly, making one of those hits a dash uppercut and a single hit after burst at a squishy before they can even know what happened. She does suffer more than Panther when it comes to being CC'd, I believe, as I think Panther can avoid it easier, although she probably has a better chance to survive after being CC'd. But I'm going to put her up in B tier right below Panther since I think she still has the lowest ceiling of the main 3 dive DPS right now. Man, what is it with floating old European dudes and their portable shields, stuns, and mid-range burst damage? Well, luckily for Magneto, just like Sigma, he is probably the most consistent tank in this game. His bubble can be used in so many situations to just keep someone alive at will. His shield will always be another great survivability tool. He's got a stun that's easy to use, on top of high burst DPS. His ult is fairly lackluster compared to other tank ults, but that's not to say it's bad, as it can be a great ult for a lot of situations, like insta-killing a Punisher in his ult, or pulling away that Iron Man blast. I definitely think Mag is currently the best tank in the game, and he earns a spot right above Groot in A tier. Ah, Mantis, the yin to Luna's yang. When Luna thrives in pumping out an insane amount of healing, Mantis thrives in being a mini Hela, terrorizing with raw damage. Not only is she this game's version of a Pocket with her damage boost packs, she pumps out crazy damage herself. With a sleep, she can toss on the ground to save herself. On top of all this, her ult is like a mini Luna's. It may be shorter, but she can also still pump damage during it, and the overhealth makes it so that surviving something like a Hawkeye headshot is possible, where in Luna's you would just die. This is one situation where if I wasn't doing the normal distribution, I would be putting Mantis in S tier, but for this list, I'll be putting her right at the top of A tier where she belongs. Probably my least favorite character to play against, besides maybe Magik, Moon Knight. I do have to appreciate just so much skill that goes into aiming at, a stationary target that you throw down, or hitting a tank to shred the entire team. My bitching aside, Moon Knight can get great damage value against targets playing close together, while also being able to burst down other squishies quickly in 1v1s. His ult can also shred anyone unlucky enough to be caught within it, and he can reposition easily across the map. His impact does fall off a bit though if a team can focus diving him and forcing him off his off angles. But if he's able to grab those angles again without competition, he can perform as a top DPS. I put him right at the bottom of B tier for this. Namor is someone I've been a hater of since the start of the game. I firmly had him as an F or D tier character and stood by that for so long. And then I hit flat and I started to see some impact. His spears put in a nice bit of damage, bit of a mini Hela as well that way. His turrets can be annoying as hell, and his ability to pop his bubble and get quickly healed up makes for a good escape. So I conceded and I thought he was about a C tier. But then I saw how his ult is fairly useful, and even though I first judged it to be awful, the stun that it gives will bring squishies down to one shot, comes in great, especially when comboed with something like a Groot ult, or just being used to deny maneuverability abilities. So I brought him up to B tier, and I think that's where he belongs, in the bottom of B. Now, there is an exception where I think he does belong above Moon Knight, and that's when he has that team up with Luna, or specifically when he's being picked for going against dive comps. Namor's turrets, when playing a dive comp, are a pain to deal with, and the freeze turret especially comes in really handy. So I do think that this is the one situation that having that team up is going to put him above a character for me, and I will be putting him right above Moon Knight in B. Peni, the queen of being very good in very niche situations and kinda mid everywhere else. Need to defend somewhere with tight alleys? She's your girl. Need to stun the hell out of some kind of diver? She's right there. That first escort point on the Venom map is a nightmare to get through with Peni especially. Her spawners and tough to hit spots with those mines can get great value over time, and her stun almost having no cooldown makes it amazing for dealing with dives. That being said, she's also probably the easiest tank in this game to kill, and she suffers greatly in open maps. Her ult is also kind of lackluster. It's good for survivability, but that's really about it. It would probably be better if it didn't shoot people in the air, but oh well. I have her in B tier because I think she really does excel in the spots she excels in, but she is very bipolar with her use cases. I think Psylocke is currently the best dive DPS. Her escapability is the best of anyone, with 2 dashes and invis, Plus, her burst potential on squishies is amazing, and her ult is by far the best of the three in B tier. She also doesn't lose value at more mid-range, allowing her to play with their team until an opportunity arises, while other dive DPS have to get up close and personal, or they just don't do anything. I think it doesn't need to be said that she goes towards the top of B because of all of this. She is just so flexible and so good. Now, Punisher has pretty good damage with his rifle. His turret can be alright in certain cases, but it's kind of mid usually, honestly. And his grapple is nice to maneuver, and his smoke can help in repositioning slightly when need be. But his real time to shine comes with his ult and his shotgun. His ult is fairly obvious, insane DPS that puts the fear in Tank's eyes and shreds anything he remotely looks at. The shotgun, however, is the most underrated part of his kit, as it can absolutely decimate any divers. Being able to 2-tap a Magik is crazy, and God help the Venom that's trying to swing on you, because his health bar is disappearing faster than your dad did. I think he is currently the second best DPS that doesn't always get banned, and for this reason I'm putting him right at the top of B. Rocket is kind of like Peni, in that he's kind of bad, but when it comes time for his niche, he comes in clutch. On defense, his respawn can be really handy, making it a lot harder to take the first point, or helps to mount a last-second clutch. Other than that, though, his healing is kind of like Jeff's over time, and generally kind of bad compared to other supports, and his ult is honestly one of the worst in the game. And although he does have some good survivability with his dashes, he's a bit easier to kill than Jeff. I think he has a place right in the middle of C tier. And my opinion of him has improved over time, so I might go up from there, but for now this is where he'll stay. Scarlet Witch is pretty awful. Wanda's damage really sucks, literally, and her ult is right up there with Rocket and one of the worst in the game. Her stun isn't bad, and her survivability with her invincibility is alright, but it just doesn't make up for how awful her damage is. If your supports are even remotely paying attention, you just won't die to her. And she's an easy target to hit when she's not fading away, and her ultimate not only can be stunned out of it super easily, but she just dies whenever trying to pop it if she isn't stunned. Your only hope, really, of getting this god-awful nuke off is if no one on the enemy team is paying attention at all, your team invests a bunch of stuff like Mag Bubble for you, or if you do some trickery like Strange Portaling. Even with all of that, it's still a massive risk to use, and it just isn't worth it. Easily F tier. Still better than Widow, though, at least. Spidey is a big one, where I feel like he's better on PC than he is on console. I really want to like him. He's got crazy movement and insane burst potential, and he's just such a cool adaptation of the character for this game. Probably my favorite character design, and has the best potential for some crazy plays. But he just isn't really that good on console. I don't know what it is, but I've only seen like one or two good Spidey mains so far, and he's just absent in my games typically. I still think he gets great value while not dying, but there's dive DPS that are just better right now to get killed and cause disruption. C tier. Squirrel Girl is pretty bad. There's not much more to say, honestly. She's the simplest character in the game by far. You have hop, stun, and instant use with those again, and then squirrels running forward. The hop is a nice survivability tool, and the stun can be a bit annoying, but hard to hit on targets that aren't tanks or just right up against you. Her damage is honestly not that bad, but it gets healed up pretty quickly. She just doesn't have that quick burst potential. There's probably a reason that I only know of one Squirrel Girl main in GM. I think she deserves her place right in D tier. Star-Lord is another character I really want to love, and I do think he's got better damage potential than Spidey, but he's just so easy to kill sometimes, and there's way too many times he just does a whole lot of nothing until popping his ult, getting a few kills, and going back and doing nothing. I think with a bit of more time, he'll probably climb this list, especially since he has a lot of damage avoidance and quick burst potential, but right now, he goes right above Spidey in that can't wait to see them get better tier of heroes. Storm, I don't have really a lot of words for. She's just a slightly better Wanda, but still pretty awful. Easy to kill in her ult, pretty bad damage overall, and the buffs are nice, but not really useful to balance out the rest of her kit. Everything Wanda suffers from, Storm also really suffers from, but hey, at least Storm has a slightly better ult to balance it out. F tier. I like Thor. I think he gets some nice damage out, especially with that long range lightning throw attack. He has some real nice survivability tools with his overhealth on cooldown usage. His ult is a pretty nice tool to get a kill or two, and he can help with punishing out of position heroes by repositioning them with cooldowns. I don't think he's as consistently good as some of the other tanks, but I do think he has a really nice place amongst tanks. And if Hela wasn't always banned, maybe his team up could take him up a notch, but for now, bottom of B is good. Venom is really cool for disruption. His overhealth makes him hard to kill too. He's got a really cool kit and helps in dives a lot, but problem is he's kind of easy to survive and he just gets shredded by so many DPS. He basically has to pop that extra shield every dive super quickly, and if he gets CC'd at all during those dives, there's a good chance that he gets shredded as he gets CC locked. Now, as dive gets used more and more, he might rise this list, and I really hope so because the good Venom mains I've come across are really fun to play with. Plus, he has the best skin in the game so far. But for now, while dive is kind of in its infancy and we are still in a different meta, I think he belongs more towards the top of C. Now, I might be a bit biased here. Winter Soldier is someone I only really started playing once I hit Diamond, but he's someone I love so much. I basically one-trick Bucky if I'm not playing Cloak, and for good reason. He may only have 3 shots, but they do massive damage, especially on headshot. And those headshots are real easy to hit when you grapple a target in or line up a quick punch on him. His overhealth and every cooldown usage makes him hard to kill. His reloads on cooldowns too make him be able to fire off a ton of shots quickly, and he just absolutely demolishes tanks by just yoinking them into your backline and punching them further in. On top of all this, his ult is one of the best in the game, insta-killing a target that gets too low and resetting when anyone kills those targets. And with the overhealth you get on the ult usage too, and the ability to really easily burn down squishies once they get hit with that ult, you can easily become an insta-team wipe machine. In my opinion, Bucky is the best DPS you can play that isn't always banned, and belongs right at the top of A tier. And finally, we have Wolverine, another character I was pretty low on initially, but I've come to realize he's got some great potential with his tank shredding capability. Getting into the enemy backline and just picking up a tank and moving them into your team to get shredded is painful for tank mains. Not to mention, his quick overhealth can make him a pain to kill if you get him low. His ult is alright for some quick damage, and he has some capability to win a fight early. That being said, if he misses that bounce or can't capitalize off of it, there's not a whole lot of value that Wolverine is getting in that fight until he gets that bounce back, and he falls off pretty quickly because of that. I'm going to be putting him right at the top of C tier for this, and hopefully I get to see him climb this list as well. Well, that's everyone. Now, when it comes to this list, take it with a grain of salt. It's still very early into the Marvel Rivals lifespan. I mean, we're only in Season 0, and the meta is still constantly evolving. Hell, I'm not sure if I'm even seeing team comps half the time being properly formed. On top of this, be creative. I mean, I've seen dive comps work extremely well, and they're super fun to play, even though I have them ranked kind of low on this tier list. I honestly think you can make an argument for nearly anyone on this list to be moved somewhere else, besides maybe like the top 4 picks and Widow. So don't take this to heart too much. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on the list, and I really hope you enjoyed. This is only my second video, and I hope to produce more in the future, so if you have any tips or advice, be sure to let me know. If you enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe. I absolutely appreciate it. Until next time.